Welcome to Clear the Clutter. My name is Margaret, and this podcast is where I give you practical and spiritual advice to get your time back so you can finally spend it how you really want. Hello, and welcome back to today's podcast. So today we're going to be talking about the fact that all you need to change your life is a 15-minute power clean. So it might sound like, well, that doesn't sound like it's going to be enough to change my life. That's a really big statement to make. So here's why I think it's going to change your life. But of course, let me go into a story first. Most people, what they do is when they're trying to create a new habit, they go into over mode. I call it in my head basically, or like overwhelm mode or overcommit mode, and they like to change their entire life, turn everything upside down. So in regards to maybe diet, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to eat less junk day by day, I'm going to eat, better fruits and vegetables day by day, and kind of just transition that out of my life, people go on this crazy hardcore extreme, no this, no this, no this, and then the list of no's is like the length of their arm, and then they try and change their life, and they wonder like, wow, why is this so hard? So it's the same concept for cleaning. Sometimes that works for people. Sometimes you need a big shock. Like if there's a medical emergency and you have to stop eating all the crappy foods, then I understand why you would do something extreme. But majority of us, we don't need to do something this extreme. So same thing when it comes to cleaning. Most people think that it has to be some, hours and hours and hours spent cleaning, when in reality, most of us would go ahead and benefit from spending 15 minutes here and there cleaning. And why am I talking about cleaning? Well, of course, the podcast is Clear the Clutter. Sometimes that means physical clutter. So physical clutter will mean that we have a room in our home that just doesn't make us feel amazing anymore. So it could be aesthetically pleasing, like maybe the room looks pretty, maybe it's still inviting, maybe you can still have guests over, but it just doesn't feel good to you anymore. Or it could be a certain drawer or a cabinet is just frustrating because you can't find anything anymore. So instead of just being frustrated with that and, letting it go on and on and on, why don't you just take your phone out, put a timer on, put 15 minutes on the clock, and see what you accomplish? So the reason why I always like to recommend to people 15 minutes as a starting point, not an hour, not 45 minutes. And you can do the 15 minutes, 4 times a day. So I'm not saying you can only do one 15-minute chunk. But the reason why I start out with 15 minutes is because I am trying to rewire your brain to get used to small wins. And the other thing too is once you've gone through a decluttering and cleaning process, I want you to help keep the clutter to a minimum. It should genuinely, outside of the fact, like say, if your home is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath and under, 20 minutes to take everything and put it away is it's like what should be to put everything away in your house. So let me rephrase that because that came out really crappy. It shouldn't take more than 20 minutes to go through your house and put everything away if you have already decluttered and cleaned your home. I'm talking like all the little stuff that happens throughout the day. So putting your purse away, putting the keys away, putting maybe your kids' backpacks away, little things like that. The other thing in regards to retraining your brain, because you want to start loving small wins, it starts to help retrain other people's brains and lets them understand that, hey, if I'm asking for help, let's do as a family a 15-minute power clean. So maybe you've got kids and maybe they're at an appropriate age where they could go ahead and start helping you clean. They're not, depending on how old they are, if they're really, really young, they might not have the attention span to do an hour-long cleaning session with you. But maybe all of you guys could get together and you could put some fun music on and put 3 songs or whatever the scenario would be. And you can say, okay, we're going to take all of our toys and put as many of our toys away we can before this song is over. Ready and go. And you make it fun. So now you're teaching a really good life skill to your children, but you're also teaching it to yourself. You're showing yourself that Look at what I can accomplish in 15 minutes. Look at what I can accomplish in 15 minutes. Look what I can accomplish in 15 minutes. And then over time, the power clean turns into other things. So maybe it can turn into power cleaning the tasks on your to-do list that you really don't want to do. You're like, okay, I really don't want to make phone calls today. But you know what? I'm going to take 15 minutes and I'm going to knock out as many phone calls as I can today. And then I'm done for the day. There is plenty of books out there that talk about that stuff, but they don't necessarily talk about the whys behind it. And it comes back to you're building a muscle. You're building a muscle that most likely is fatigued because you just weren't aware it existed. So if you don't know this muscle exists, how are you supposed to strengthen it? How are you supposed to keep it strong? So that's why I always say start with 15 minutes. If you have coworkers, so maybe you're a boss and you have coworkers that you're trying to train them and have new habits, you don't want to do everything all at once because again, you're gonna break them. Instead, start identifying the most important things that you can start working on and work on them in chunks and work on them over time so that this habit, it builds and builds and builds and builds so that it can become second nature. So again, going back to that 15-minute power clean, maybe you only want to spend, that 15-minute power clean and clean your bathrooms. I know bathrooms are gross. Like, to be honest, I hate cleaning our bathrooms. Yes, I clean them. Yes, they're always, always clean, but I don't like doing it. So I'll say, okay, 15 minutes on the clock. Let me get this all done in 15 minutes. And then I get it done and it's over with. And you know what? It's that little monkey mind anxiety in the back of your head that's like, wow, this is done. This is over with. I can move on. I don't have something nagging me anymore. I have a little win to celebrate. And that's the other thing I want to talk about. When it comes to those power cleans, the reason why we're retraining your brain to do something in a small manner is because over time, it's going to be really important to have those small wins. You're going to be able to use it in other parts of your life, but you need to start building that muscle. Think of it this way. A 15-minute power clean is the equivalent of starting out, going to the gym, and say you're going to build your arms, and say you haven't done arms in years, right? Maybe a decade even. A 15-minute power clean is the equivalent of taking maybe a 2 or a 5 pound weight and lifting it and doing some bicep curls. And you may be thinking like, wow, this is really easy. This is way too easy. God, I should be picking up the 10 or 15s. Like, this is just ridiculous. That's not the point. I'm trying to get you to focus on, if we're using the gym analogy, I'm trying to get you to focus on proper form, proper execution, and the fact that you were just physically doing your arms. So maybe for the first 3 or 4 times you do arms, you start out with what you call the baby weights, but your form is perfect, your function is perfect, you're working with the muscles, and then over time you're going to realize, wow, I really can, without losing my form, go up to maybe the 5 pound or the 10 pound or the 15 pound. And then again, you focus at the 5 pound or 10 pound or 15 pound level, and you focus on proper form, proper structure, and you do it over and over and over again until it becomes just really, really, really easy. And then from there, you build up and you build up and you build up. Again, the power clean is the same thing. So some days you may need to do maybe a 2-hour power clean, but in 2 hours you can accomplish what it takes other people 4 or 5 hours to do because you've built that muscle. Everything in your home has a place. Everything, everyone knows that let me rephrase. Everyone in your home knows that they need to put their things away. Everyone knows that when you guys are doing a clean, that you're all doing it together and that there is an end in sight. You're not, reinventing the wheel from scratch when it comes to your house because you've already set up the rules and the structure and you've built the baby muscle into a medium muscle and then eventually into a big muscle. So if you have, like me in the past, came home, and you only had 2 hours before guests came over, you already have your routine down. You know that it takes about 15-20 minutes to take anything that's out and about and put it away. You know that it takes, maybe 6 minutes to sweep your house or vacuum. You know that it takes about 15-20 minutes to go ahead and mop. And then you know that it takes this amount of time to dust and this amount of time to prep for the food and that yada, yada, yada. So you've done it so many times that within the 2 hours, you can accomplish and you can quote unquote make your house super clean, but you can accomplish what it's going to take someone else 3 or 4 hours to accomplish because they're just not used to it. They haven't built the structure, they haven't built the routine, and they don't have the muscle memory. So you could go through what I loved to used to do in the past was I had a laundry basket that I would use, and I would go from room to room, and I would grab stuff and take it out of one room and, put it in the room that it belonged, but I'd made the loop twice. So that was the entire goal. You would take everything that didn't belong in like the living room, for example, put it in the laundry basket. And then if there was something that belonged in the laundry basket, you put it back in the living room. And then you go to the dining room, same thing. And then you go to the kitchen, then you go to the bathrooms, and then you go to the bedrooms, and then you go to the outside spaces like your car or your garage. So I never really went anywhere more than twice, but it was me building the muscle memory of, oh, my DVDs need to go and live in my living room because that's where their home is. My food, all of my food, needs to live in the kitchen because that is where its home is. My dining room does not need to be a catch-all. It needs to be a dining room. So let's take the bills and let's take the purses and let's take the stuff that belongs in the garage and put it in those rooms, and let's make the dining room because that's what it belongs to. Like, I should have my plates out, I should have my pretty napkins out, I should have my tablecloth out because that's what makes my dining room feel like a dining room. You get the point. So I started the 15-minute power clean working on my dining room because in our old home, the dining room was literally the catch-all. When you walked into our house, it was one of the first places that you could legitimately put something down. So instead of putting it down in the appropriate spot, we would put everything down on the dining room table. And then over time, I got frustrated because the dining room table just felt like it had a mountain of stuff on it. And I like to have all my things put away before I go to bed. It makes it really calm so that when I wake up in the morning, my house looks clean and is very calming and very inviting versus looking and reminding me like, oh my God, you have all these projects you haven't even finished. So that's where the 15-minute power clean came from. It came from the fact that I wanted to have a dining room table that I really, really loved and was inviting and just screamed, come and sit down and eat with me versus we use you as a dumping ground. So what I did is I would put a timer on the stove and I would put 15 minutes and I would see what I could put away in 15 minutes. And mind you, sometimes I would put, as much as I could away, but the 15 minutes would end and I didn't put everything away. And instead of freaking out, sometimes I would keep going if I could. Sometimes I would just stop and say, you know what? I did a good job. And that's the entire point. You build that muscle. And then over time, because things started to end up going to their home the first go round versus making it to the dining room table, I could clean the dining room table in 5 minutes versus 15 or 20 minutes. So it may be a deceptively easy topic, but it has really big impact. So I would love to hear from you. What do you do to use a 15-minute power clean? So do you use it at home? Do you use it at your job? Do you use it in your to-do list? I'd love to hear your feedback. And if you could, go and type it in the comments at margaretstevens.co. I'll talk to you later. Have a great day. Bye, guys. Have a burning question for me? Want that link I was talking about? Get access to all the resources and links that were mentioned in this episode and others over at margaretstevens.co. And if you haven't, don't forget to sign up for my VIP list where I share special bonuses, pre-launch coupon codes, and advice I don't share anywhere else. Thanks for listening.